Hello and welcome to the January 2025 podcast for the Leicester, Leicestershire and Rutland LMC. First off, Happy New Year, and let's hope that 2025 is going to be a much better year for general practice than we've seen for the last few years. In this podcast, I'm going to cover most of or about half of what's in the newsletter, but unfortunately I don't have time to cover everything. Bits which I'm not going to cover include we've got an update about minor surgery, about accelerated access to GP records, a section on floods, business continuity, OPOL reporting, and DOS reg rating, job vacancies, and upcoming LMC events. Please refer to the full newsletter for these items. Highlighted three areas within the newsletter for special attention: translation of clinical documents, medical examiner service, and general practice is awesome. It's official. The LMC definitely thinks so. So the LMC board met on the 8th of January. We had sort of quite a lively discussion. We did have Richard Mitchell, Chief Executive Officer of UHL, attended, and he updated the board regarding UHL issues. And we also asked him to take away some problems that have been raised to us by various GPs. Please remember that we do have this access, which we are really lucky to have. So if you have an issue that you cannot solve other ways, do let the LMC know, and we can raise it directly with Richard or one of his team. We also had a really interesting presentation from Will Monahan, the Group Chief Digital Information Officer for UHL and UHN, regarding their plan to implement electronic patient record with the view to completely replace the current paper records and also electronic prescribing. In addition, he told us that there is a proposed partnership with Microsoft to develop the use of artificial intelligence to be used in clinical services, which was interesting stuff. But of course, from the LMC point of view, we did say that that shouldn't be at the expense of sorting out what was needed today. There is a section in the newsletter about the British Medical Association's annual representative meeting. Now, this is the meeting that happens once a year, which sets the policy for the BMA, so it's really important. For the last couple of years, due to a change in the way that elections happened, and due to there being one sort of really active pressure group, the number of GPs elected to attend this really important meeting has reduced. Last year, actually, there was just a 2% turnout, so it's really poor turnout. So all I'm asking is that when you get your voting papers through, when you're asked to vote by email, if you are a BMA member, then please do vote. And when you are voting, please consider prioritizing GPs who are on that list first. It's really important that we get the GP voice heard really loud and clear. And as a declaration of interest, I have put my name forward again, but please just look through and vote for, prioritize all the GPs that are standing. And vote. If you're a BMA member, vote. Thank you. Collective action is still important that's ongoing. Partly collective action is about resetting the normal for general practice. So we've got a new normal which promotes safe working and which stops unfunded or underfunded work. There's another part to collective action as well, which is about causing disruption to the system and therefore increasing the ability of our national representative to negotiate a more appropriate replacement contract, which of course is needed from April 2025 in a few months' time onwards. We are planning a further face-to-face meeting about collective action, which we will combine with hopefully discussions about the details of the new GP contract, and the date for that is proposed to be the 8th of April 2025. No other details at the moment, likely be during the day, so please put this in your diary. It's going to be a really important meeting. The GPC England continues to request practices to complete a tracker survey. The detail for the survey commencing from Monday, 13th of January, is within the newsletter. Please think about completing that. Bariatric surgery has been a really important topic. Bariatric surgery and weight loss services is actually a bit of a mess at the moment within Leicestershire and Rutland. Tier 1 is about sort of general advice and about sort of population type approaches. Tier 2 is commissioned by local authorities. Although at present, I understand this is still available in Leicestershire and Rutland, although of course by the time this podcast goes out, that might not be so. But currently there is no service available for patients living in Leicester City. Tier 3 is commissioned by the NHS and the ICB, but currently the local service is not available. Just mentioned that we're aware of at least one out-of-area provider where patients can be referred to under the right to choose. The one that we're aware of is one called Aviva. I'm not endorsing or recommending this particular service. I've got no experience of it, but purely putting this in there that there are other alternatives, and I suspect that patients are likely to ask you about it. Tier 4 is commissioned by, again, by the NHS and ICB, and this is where the bariatric surgery happens. And currently, again, the local service is unavailable for new referrals. In the lack of really any sort of local service, it's not surprising that patients are looking for an easy fix elsewhere. It's not surprising that the increasing number are turning to cheaper private providers abroad in Turkey and other countries. This is leading for problems for general practice. Despite numerous meetings with the ICB and UHL consultants, we've been unable to agree a definitive position, but I believe we're getting there slowly. The NICE says actually that after having surgery, all patients should be followed up by the bariatric service for 2 years. I'll just underline that, bariatric service, not general practice. And this follow-up includes regular health checks, tests to make sure they're getting the nutrients they need, support with their diet, increase physical activity and psychological support if needed. That's not something that we can do in general practice. UHL is saying that if a patient was not eligible for NHS care when they've had a procedure done, then they're not eligible for NHS follow-up. Of course, I mean, our view is that if a patient is not eligible for NHS follow-up, then this includes follow-up by general practice. So there are different scenarios that you can think about. Low-risk surgery, where a patient is entitled to NHS care, they should be referred to the NHS bariatric service. Low-risk surgery, but the patient isn't entitled to NHS care. These patients should be advised that they must seek support from their private provider who carried out the operation or another private provider, but that they're not entitled to NHS care, and that includes by general practice. Very high-risk surgery, the UHL service has said that because this is high risk, then they will provide follow-up. Now, this is one area where we're seeking some clarity on this regarding what procedures this will cover, although I've been unable so far to get a list from the consultants. And the final thing is complications. If a patient suffers from a complication, then the NHS will provide care, and you should refer the patient as urgently as the clinical need dictates. If you're unsure whether the patient may be entitled to follow-up by the UHL, then the bariatric service has advised that if you send an advice and guidance, they will let you know whether the patient will be eligible or not. This may be helpful. I know that we're saying in collective action not to use advice and guidance, but this may be helpful to the general practice, specifically as it may then help you to be able to go back to the patient and say, look, the hospital is saying that you're not entitled, really sorry. In the meantime, NICE have issued guidance about making tirzepatide available to patients in general practice, rolled out over a 12-year period. The LMC has made it clear to the ICB that if there's no national contract, then they cannot expect general practice to just provide the service, and that the service will need to be properly specified and funded. And again, you know, that there is talk that the tiers will be removed, the tiered approach to weight loss will be removed. And again, to make it clear that just because that happens, then general practice will not be there to pick up the pieces if an alternative is not commissioned. General practice is not an all-you-can-eat buffet. We're not a free lunch. We have a contract to provide specific services. When we have more clarity, we will provide practices with some additional help on that. Next, General Practice Awards. As I said at the beginning, General Practice is awesome. It's official. This is what the LMC think. And the LMC has been thinking about how can we further promote general practice. And we've come up with the idea of having our own award ceremony. Last year, as you may remember, that the MC partnered with the UHL, who kindly offered to provide one award. But this year, we're going to do 3, and we're going to tie it into our annual general meeting, which is going to be on Tuesday, 11th of March, in the evening, starting from 6:30. Food supplied, dinner supplied at the Hilton Hotel. And at that meeting, we'll have we've got to do the AGM because we are a limited company. We'll also have a presentation by Dr. Samira Anand, Deputy Chair of the GP Committee in England, who we hope by then will be able to update us about the proposed GP contract for April 2025, or at least give us some flavour about how negotiations are going. Nominations will be for anyone working within general practice, whether it's a GP, practice manager, nurse, pharmacist, in the following 3 categories: outstanding contribution to general practice, greatest leader, rising star. We will then shortlist up to 3 people in each of those categories, and the nominee plus one of their choosing, plus a nominator, will all be invited to attend the evening event. Winners will be presented with an award and a certificate. Full details about how to nominate an awesome colleague and how to actually book a seat for the AGM will be sent out in an email separately. Reforming effective care. This is the government's new bright idea. This is the long-awaited change to the NHS, and as per expected, it focuses really purely on secondary care. The bit of general practice in there is purely about how can general practice support secondary care as well. Unfortunately, when you read the report, you can see the fingers of NHS England all over the report, reinforcing my ongoing view that NHS England still hate general practice. Whilst it's crucial for the waiting list for elective surgery to be reduced, which is this report just mainly concentrates on, this should not be at the expense of general practice. Indeed, Lord Darcy's report that this government commissioned highlighted the problems caused by reducing general practice share of NHS funding, particularly affecting deprived areas, further increasing health inequalities. And of course, the health of the nation has suffered. The report itself, the only sort of really interesting thing, I suppose, for general practice is that this they say that they're going to pay us £20 for every advice and guidance sent instead of referral. They reckon that additional 1.6 million advice and guidance requests will lead to a reduction in 0.8 million referrals. Well, I tell you what, the advice and guidance has got to improve remarkably to get anywhere near that. And what few referrals are saved will be, to be honest, at the expense of general practices providing additional work and care for, just for a change, for no additional resources or support. The plan is heavily dependent upon innovations, which, as far as I can see, have got significant risk of increasing health inequalities, which the report doesn't even recognise. The plan does include new ways of working. There is one still in it, which particularly seems to sort of lack recognition that general practice could do a lot of this stuff better than other places. There was also another case study that is now being expunged. In the past, when you've had a document like this, if there was a change, there'll be a new version. But what they've done is actually they've removed this case study from history. Fortunately, I did get a screenshot of it. So if you want to find out more and why it's particularly Yeah, stupid, then do read the newsletter, or at least that section. Just as an aside, whilst I was sort of preparing for this, I do follow Amanda Pritchard on Twitter, or I'm not supposed to call it X now, where she has published this wonderful tweet about what the public can do to try and help to offload secondary care. And what she says is the public can play their part. Please seek help when you need it. She goes on to say, we would rather see you sooner when viruses are easier to treat than later when it is more difficult. So if you start seeing more patients turning up within an hour or two of their sore throat or runny nose, then please direct them to Amanda Pritchard, because apparently she can now treat viruses, which is really good. To me, this just reinforces again that if you've always done what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got, as Henry Ford said. And why on earth is this new government still persevering with the same NHS England board who oversaw the development of the crisis in the NHS? To me, I don't think that we're really going to be able to move forward until they actually replace the board with different people. Everyone I talk tells me that they have no trust now in the NHS England board. So the only final thing I was going to talk about in this podcast was my final thoughts, and I'll let you actually read that. But just to let you know that this month I've decided to talk about the management tour of the SEP, the SEP, which is something which I first heard about when I was a teenager, but I've used it over and over again since to great effect at times. So just once again to say Happy New Year. I really hope that the contract in April is going to turn general practice around and start developing us, start investing in general practice, so we can start to see an improvement in the health of our patients again. I hope you'll catch up again next month.